Hello everyone, today's video will be a podcast style video, me talking to someone called Bushi. He does stream on Twitch, he's been streaming for about 2 months. I'll leave his Twitch in the description. If you want to check him out, feel free to do so. As you can tell by the title, this man has a lot of money. I've never interviewed someone who's worth so much money, and I just want to talk to him about what it's like for him having that money. And I want to speak to him about the Duel Arena and merchanting, which are ways that he makes money. Duel Arena obviously is a big subject, and I've never covered it before, so it should be pretty fun speaking about it and just seeing all perspectives. So with that being said, let's get into it. Hello, Mr. Bushi. Hopefully you're doing amazingly today. How's it going, my man?
Doing very well. Thank you, Mr. Maikeru. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. Looking forward to, diving into a little bit more about myself and, yeah, like you said, any questions you guys may have.
So first of all, obviously the generic intro, tell me about yourself and like what you do and maybe how you got to play in RuneScape to start and what keeps you playing now.
Yeah, absolutely. How I got started into RuneScape, it's been about 15 years since I first started playing the game actually, and I think like most players have had a very kind of on and off relationship with the game, taking significant breaks in between.
Oh, definitely.
I most recently came back into the game in 2017, I believe. I wasn't a max account or anything. I came back just with, a couple Easter eggs that I invested all my cash into before I took a longer break and set a goal of maxing and just, I've been addicted to the game since, and I've been just playing it more and more. So.
Hey, same pretty much, except for the investment part because I'm not smart. I invested in Drygores when I quit the game last time, and then they crashed like 90%. So I remember selling my Santa hat for Drygores, and I was like, yeah. And then I used Drygores to go like QBD and stuff, and it was great. And then I kind of got burnt out and I stopped playing. And then I came back, and the Santa had risen like tenfold, but the Drygores have crashed 10% of the price of what they were. And it was like, well, that was a dumb decision. So you're definitely smarter than me in that regards. But yeah, I think everyone takes breaks in the game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just natural too. Like there's a lot of content to this game and you can get burned out at times and it's okay to take breaks. I think that's almost the best way to play RuneScape, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Because then when you come back, there's just so much new content to enjoy as well. Like when I came back, divination was a thing that I'd never heard of. Invention was an amazing skill that I learned, and it's honestly my favorite skill now. Like stuff like that is just it's overwhelming, and it's that rush again of like there's just an overwhelming large amount of things to do, and you're just kind of racing against your friends and stuff to hit those milestones and achievements first. It was really fun.
Yeah, and the discovery aspect and stuff definitely as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's how you started RuneScape. That's why you play RuneScape. So what about the whole money stuff? So I believe you have around I correct me if I'm wrong, it's like 1.5 trillion or something, a little bit less, right?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah. So I did a bank reveal on my stream as part of a follower goal we hit, and we calculated it out to about 1.3 trillion. I
Right.
a lot of my value fluctuates on a daily basis. So if you were to check my wealth evaluator on a daily basis, it's going to move quite significantly. I'm invested in multiple different items, and so it's tough to pinpoint exactly what I'm at on a day by day basis, but somewhere around that range.
That's absolutely insane because when you think about it, that is 1,300 billion.
Yeah.
And like a typical player would have like a couple of bill maybe, or not even a bill. And there's 1,300 of those within your bank. So I guess a couple of questions that I would want to ask would linking into the money that you have now. Do you obviously have to run like mule accounts where you have like some of your money at? Because I'm guessing having that much money and showcasing that you have that much money on stream and stuff would kind of, I guess, put a target on you for like hackers, especially because if someone could get a hold of that much money, that's a lot of money on like, the dodgy black market stuff and real world trade. So do you do precautions and stuff? Obviously, you might not say all your precautions, but I'm guessing there is some in place, right?
There's some precautions in place, yes. A lot of people expected that I would have more mule accounts or something like that, but honestly, that's not actually the case. I'm just very
Right.
I try to be very private with, like my security details and even personal information about myself. That's one of the maybe drawbacks as to having like this much in-game wealth is you just got to be a bit more careful, even sharing about things like where you live, exactly how long you played and stuff like that, right? Those can all be
Yeah.
tied into recovery questions. So it's just being a little bit more careful and cautious on that front. But um, for other precautions, I don't take too many extra, to be honest. Since with my rise up with the wealth and stuff in game, I'm truly honestly just having fun with it.
Right.
It's all just, I know at the end of the day, I've spent so much GP on skills. I've given, so much GP back to the community and stuff through giveaways and through contests and stuff like that, where, if anything were bad to happen, I'm still feeling okay at the end of the day.
That's interesting because I thought people would have it across tons of accounts and things like that. Because I know, like Lamy, for example, he has loads of accounts that he runs and he barely keeps any money on his main half the time. So it's interesting to see that, it's not necessarily the case. And I guess there's no way for like a hacker to really find out much if you don't give much, right? So it's understandable.
Yeah, I think as long as you're just safe with, your information and it, it's it'd be very difficult. I don't even see a way how somebody could get into it, but you know, never say never. It's
Yeah,
it's
for
certainly
sure.
always a risk, but I feel pretty safe and confident, at least with how I have things set up, at least.
Yeah, fair. So, like, how did it all start? Because obviously you got to start somewhere. I guess you came back to the game after investing in a couple of rares. Then, did you do merching? Like, what type of stuff did you start with, and like, how did that all happen to get to where you are now? Essentially.
Yeah, that's a pretty popular question in my
Mm,
stream, and it's a tough one to answer. I'll try to do it as briefly as I can. When I came back to the game, my goal was maxing, and it can be difficult to save up GP while you're maxing. You're spending a lot on skills, and you're buying a lot of new gear and equipment that costs a ton of GP in the game. And so I would actually keep a spreadsheet of my
mm,
weekly wealth totals and just kind of make a goal each week, aside from maxing of how much I wanted to make in game. And so a big portion of that was through merching.
right,
I was always a firm believer that utilizing every single mercher, like the GE slot, in the Grand Exchange, is an opportunity. And if you're not using every single slot, you're missing out on a potential, buyer wishing to overpay for an item that they desperately want, or on the flip side too, buying something that they just want to get rid of. They got a drop and they need to split it. If you don't have a buy order in, you don't have that opportunity to pick that up for maybe cheaper and flip it. So I was actively, following the price falls, the price rises on the RuneScape homepage, and keeping track of what items were moving up and down, what items, were trending downwards, and maybe investing and holding a little bit, and always, always, always having offers in the GE for something. Some of my biggest like merch items were really random things like snape grass, like
right.
something like snape grass, like when player owned farms hit, like I made a ton just off snape grass because it's the feed for animals and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's stuff you wouldn't expect, but it's passive income while you're playing the game. So while I was playing the game, training Slayer and stuff, I was always earning a little bit more GP just through my Grand Exchange offers.
Or stuff you were sitting on, kind of thing. Yeah.
Right, right, yeah, and a big part of that too was the companion app too.
Yeah, I loved the companion app.
I'm still shocked they got rid of that damn thing, but I use that all the time. And I thought that was a great way to engage with the game, outside of being logged in at your computer.
Hmm.
Me at work, on my breaks and stuff, I could check my offers and update them real quick. So
Do you do that on mobile now, or do you not do that anymore?
I do not have a key for mobile yet.
Oh, I see. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, the only thing I really want to use mobile for is the GE function.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, I'm just kind of waiting for them to really finalize the product, honestly, before I dive into that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'll continue the onslaught of questions.
Go for it.
So with money making, obviously everyone wants to make money, everyone wants to have money, but then once you get money, I feel like motivation leaves a bit. So, for example, for myself, I'm really not worth that much money. I have like, I don't know, 30 something
That's a
billion.
lot.
I mean, like, okay.
That's
So
a
I guess I
lot.
gotta rephrase it. Hi, I said it completely wrong. Yeah. Okay. If you look at it in comparison to like party hats and stuff, right? One blue party hat is like my whole bank. So one item is all of my wealth. So when you put it in comparison to like what some people have, obviously it isn't that much in comparison to them. So a typical player, I guess I have more money than a typical player, right? But I don't have anywhere near the money that you have. But at the same time, I have no motivation to make more money. If I make money now, like with, I don't know, clue scrolls or whatever, that's just a sub thing when I'm going for logs or I'm going for enjoyment in the game or whatever. And then I'll give away most of that with like, you know, random stuff that I do on stream or videos. And I guess very drawn out question, but I guess what I'm trying to say is like you have, you know, so many billions that you could have anything you want and you can have it like instantly, whatever you need. Has that ruined any of the fun from the game because you don't have like things to work towards? Or have you like limited yourself what you can do with your GP and stuff? Because, for example, you could just spin every single one of your skills by buying bonds, and then you would be 5.6, and then you could obviously not archaeology, but soon. And then you could race towards like 5.8 or something when that comes out, and you can use your wealth as your advantage, like Lamy did to get the Tony's Matic quickly and use that as his advantage, etc. Does that eliminate some of the enjoyment of the game, or does it make it more fun being able to do whatever you want?
It's a good question. And it's, when I was up and coming, right? Like when I even returned back into the game with just a couple Easter eggs at the time was, a few hundred mil. I thought the same of people that had so much wealth or were wearing a party hat, right? Like,
Yeah.
is it even fun for them? Why is PVMing even enjoyable for them, when they have a 30 billion hat on their head, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, no, it hasn't eliminated any of the enjoyment of the game for me at all. I don't know, it's hard to describe. I feel like because, before I really got into, some of the other activities I'm sure we'll discuss later on in this interview, I kind of made my own way to get there. And so I understood like what a 10 mil an hour activity was and what that value is, right?
Yeah.
And skilling and PVMing and Slayer and stuff like that, like going for boss logs and accumulating wealth has always just been a goal that I always just kind of set and I just keep pushing it and pushing it. And it just kind of drives any other activity that I do, like pushing for boss logs, as another sub goal.
Right.
It's not like my primary focus, but obtaining this wealth and then keeping it and maintaining it and growing it is always kind of a sub goal that kind of keeps me playing. Like I get just as excited about like a Dragon Rider Lance drop now as I did before.
That's really
When
interesting.
it really it's just I don't know why it is because I knew where I came from and where I started at, and it's still just it's really rare and fun to get, like just seeing that drop and that loop beam and then that message go across your chat and then your clan chat spamming grats at you. I mean,
Yeah.
those are things that GP can't buy, like that experience and that feeling.
I get that. Yeah.
A lot of people think, once you get the GP, it's like, oh, the game's got to be done and boring for you. You could just spin all yeah, to your point about spinning the skills. No, I do not buy keys to spin my skills because I know that's going to ruin the experience for me. I enjoy skilling, and it's something I'm chipping away at. Like this last DXP, okay, yeah, I bought Elder Rune Burial 5
Oh yeah,
sets
but
to do
I did
smithing.
the same thing, right? Like you do that because it's the most efficient thing. Obviously, you're going to use the
Yeah,
money for an advantage on a buyable skill. You'd be stupid not to, right?
yeah, but I'll do that, but I'll actually go about smithing. I'll go through
Yeah.
the action of smithing, and even for Herblore, I could have made the power burst potions. You made a great guide on it, as the best experience, right? Um, I decided to make overloads and stuff like that. It was a
Yeah.
little bit more costly and more time consuming, but I knew, I loved a PVM and I'm going to use these eventually.
Oh, 100% good investment.
I don't know if that really answered your question, but I mean, that's
No,
just
yeah,
like
it did. Yeah.
that's just the perspective from like my point of view. I get the question a lot when people see me do bossing, like I'll be soloing KK or something like that, and they'll be like, why are you there? Like KK's bad money. Well, it's like, well, I got my GE offers in. I might have posted on the forums to be selling a rare, and so I'm kind of passively doing that, and I want to go for this
Yeah.
boss log. Like it's just how I enjoy the game. Everybody enjoys
Oh
the
yeah.
game differently. Like you really enjoy Clue Scrolls, right?
Yeah.
Clue Scrolls aren't for me. Everybody has their own, what they enjoy in the game, and that's just for me, I guess.
Yeah, no, I completely understand it because it's kind of similar to me with the whole point of me being like, I don't really need the money anymore, but I'll get the money as like a thing that comes alongside my goals, and I still find it fun to get drops and stuff like that because if I get a piece that progresses my drop log for like clues or my Slayer log, get a pet or something because that's all I really need now because I've got most of the Slayer log done. Like that's really enjoyable to me because it's not necessarily the money that comes with it, but it's the rareness and like completion side of it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Yep.
I don't know. It just feels nice to hear that. I guess money hasn't changed the outlook of the game. A lot of people think when they get money, then there's no point in carrying on because they've got everything they need. But then you found other goals and you've set yourself personal achievements, which is really really cool. There's the side of it where people always seem to want to equate GP to real money. I remember I said to my Twitch chat that I'll be talking to you and you're worth like nearly 1.5 trillion GP, and I kind of want to ask you some questions about like yourself and how it happened and all of the stuff that we're talking about now. And someone in the chat was instantly like, "Oh, if they sold that for real money, they could get like 100 grand." It's like, right, but it's in-game currency. It's not IRL currency. So like everyone always puts that label on it. Does that ever like cross your mind or impact you and impact the things that you do? Like if you lose money, does that feel worse because it has like a real life value? Even if you're never obviously thinking about real world trading, does that ever cross your mind?
Surprisingly, no, it
Mm-hmm.
it 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 doesn't cross my mind for me because even when I started getting into it and accumulating wealth as quickly as I did, I just told myself it was never going to be an option.
Oh
I,
yeah,
I
for sure.
care too much about my account and how many hours, days, years put into this
Mm-hmm.
account, and I know that it was all accumulated within game to the point where it's just I'm having fun with it now. It's not. I know a lot of people bring it up to me, and we try to filter those comments out as best as we
Mm-hmm.
can. But people are going to be naturally curious, which is fine, and there is a value for it to it too. Like I'm not blind to that as well, or trying to ignore that. But just for me, when I lose some money on a flip or in a stake and stuff like that, no, it doesn't affect me, extra or anything because it's so much, right? It's
Yeah.
it's a lot of GP in the game, but I see it as that. All right, I
Yeah.
lost a lot of GP in the game. That's a tough question, but
Oh no, yeah, I
yeah,
understand. I'm asking.
it's a tough question, but that's kind of at least how I've thought about it in my process with it.
Mm-hmm.
It is a lot. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, when you're at a point where you have that much money, there'd be no way you would be able to real world trade and get away with it anyway because your accounts are so closely monitored.
You
So
said it very well. Like an account like mine's probably being watched pretty closely.
yeah, exactly.
So I don't I don't claim to be the smartest person, but I'm not going to be dumb enough to do something like that and risk it. And I don't know, maybe that's a separate conversation. But how even it's conducted, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Of how do you trust somebody to transact it? It's it's just a whole can of worms I don't want to open.
Oh yeah, for sure. I completely understand. Even though it is a hard question to answer, it's something that's cool to see your look on because I'm guessing a lot of people that are listening to this conversation probably instantly thought when seeing, oh, that person's worth over a trill. Holy moly, that's a lot of money, right? Because that that is something that people obviously instantly assume. So thank you for answering that. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, oh for sure. It's a common question in my streams and stuff too, and it's natural to be curious about it, and I don't really have a big problem answering it. It is what it is. I know it exists within the game. I'm not, blind to that either. And you do see quite a bit at the arena.
Yeah.
Not of that, but just just general sketchiness. So maybe not kind of what some people expected my perspective would be on it, but that's kind of at least my position.
Yeah, that's understandable. And thank you again for answering.
Like I said, it's a natural question for the place, and it would probably be your top comment if you made a video about it too. So.
Oh yeah. It'd be like, that's worth
Yep.
$100,000!
Yep.
Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Now people are actually going to comment that now. So that's good. All right, cool. When it comes to, I guess, the Duel Arena then, I know some of your streams are doing stakes and dueling and stuff.
I mean, we can say most of them right now, but
Yeah, so
yeah.
I've seen a decent amount of it, and I personally am not the biggest fan of the Duel Arena because of the unhealthy side of it in terms of gambling, because obviously it suits that gambler's mindset and it promotes very unhealthy ways of playing the game. It could, you can get clean, lose all your money, or you can get addicted to staking to the point where that's all you do in game, and then you make loads of money staking, and then it ruins every other aspect of the game, because what's the point of going and doing Telos when you can stake and make 5 times that amount? So I've lost a fair few friends from them falling in the pit of the Duel Arena, and I personally am not the biggest fan of it. But with that being said, Old School and RS3 share the same thing where staking is fun to watch, because there is that whole thrill to watching someone gamble money. It's the same as watching poker, same as watching whatever. Someone's riding a lot of money and they either lose it all or they win it all. And that is that thing that you are entertained by. You watch things to see that, heart racing moment. So I completely understand people watching staking and stuff like that. And I've spoken to you briefly about the whole thing and why you do it. So did you want to talk about like what it is from your perspective when you stream staking, and what you would say to people that I see you staking and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. First and foremost, to kind of start off, this might be a longer answer, but
Yeah, that's fair.
when I decided to first do it, like you said, it's very entertaining to watch. I think, at the time I first learned about the place, I think I was killing racks going for my boss title, and I
Mm-hmm.
saw SparkMac on Old School actually come to RS3, and this was back in September or August of 2019.
Right.
And he did a staking stream, and in one stream he took a few Halloween masks, which is approximately 3 bill, turned it into a party hat set in one evening. It's mesmerizing and really fun content to watch, like you said. And me sitting there PVMing and stuff, you asked, like, has it changed perspective of the game, what you do, the activities, the GP you earn and stuff like that. Seeing him make, close to 100 bill in one night while I'm killing Raxor for 2 mil a kill on average or something like that, I was like, I decided to go and try it from there. So that's kind of how I got into it,
Right.
or at least was first exposed to it. But I think my position was a little bit different compared to most people I see that go to the arena.
So how much money did you have when you were watching SparkMax stream?
When I was watching his stream, I was at a point in the game where I had all my gear, my
Mm-hmm.
tier 92s, all from PVMing, all my perks. I had enough supplies to do PVMing and stuff, and I had just finished an orb set, I think, at Telos. So I had about 2 bill spare cash,
Mm-hmm.
is when I saw his stream, and then the next day I think went to the arena. And I messed around with some smaller stakes to start, like 1 to 5 mils, just to kind of figure out, what is this place? Is it safe?
Right.
And I remember ending that first day with like a 300 mil stake, which was a lot at the time. I mean, that's like 1/6 of my cash stack, and for me, 300 mil, that was like close to an orb at the time, and an orb took me 1 to 2 weeks to get based on the enrage that I could kill Telos at.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, a lot. But I knew, and I was comfortable going in those stakes, that if I lost, I was going to be okay. I had my gear, I had all my perks, I had everything I needed to do what I wanted to do in the game, even if I lost. That's where, to get back to your question a little bit, what people like should do or look for when they maybe are considering going to the arena is making sure that you're in a position in the game where you've accomplished your goals, buying your gear, achieving what you want to achieve, and not try to achieve it through the duel arena, because I could see how that would devalue the aspect of grinding up and obtaining your own gear and stuff like that, and just the feeling of accomplishment of getting those drops. That's the mistake I think I see a lot of people do with the arena. They might be sitting on like tier 80 armors and stuff like that, and they want to have best in slot gear and stuff, and they say, hey, I just got a drop and I want to go try to win tier 92s off this, and they lose it, and then they get demotivated from pushing that grind even further because they just lost that drop they just got. So long answer. But that's kind of that's it, it's hard to explain, I think, concisely, but that's at least my approach with it.
I definitely agree, because a lot of people try and go there for quick money so they can get, a scythe or something like that. And obviously that's completely the wrong outlook to take. Or people, sell their gear to go staking, and that's the part of the arena that is bad. It's so easy to get carried away by the whole gambling aspect. And it's like, next time I could win. So then you sell something and then you lose, and then you sell another thing and then you lose, and then you have nothing left, kind of thing, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it definitely requires a lot of self-control. And it can feed into, kind of like what you said, like those gambling tendencies, and it can be very unhealthy. It's not the prettiest place for the game, in terms of like the mental aspect it has on people, and kind of what it's done to some players for sure, but can be a fun escape too for individuals that have achieved a lot in the game on by themselves and stuff like that. And it's just extra cash, like it was in my position, right? That's where it's kind of two-sided a little bit, and unfortunately I think it gets a lot of negative looks in the community and stuff, just based on hearing of friends and stuff that get cleaned and they want to quit and stuff like that. That can be tough to hear, and I've had friends that I know, IRL, that have quit the game over that place as well.
Yeah, I've had plenty of friends quit over the Duel Arena, which is why obviously not the best place for me to say for people to go, but it definitely makes for engaging content. I do agree with that.
And we kind of talked about that on my stream too, was like, why is it so engaging? Why do so many people like to watch it? And for that rush, right? For that risk of, this person staking this much, that's crazy. I couldn't even think of that, or having that much gold. And we were kind of chatting about just the overall lack of like kind of riskier activities within the game. I would love to see, like a new higher level PVM boss where there's like a set death cost and it's maybe a little bit higher, but the drops and the potential rewards are higher, really kind of pushing that upper PVM tier. People really love watching clue scrolls and clue scroll openings. Why? Because it's kind of that random chance mechanic, right? You're gambling your time.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
lottery.
it's a lottery. You're gambling your time and you're spending time to do the clues.
Only difference with that obviously is clue scrolls you never lose, right?
Correct. Yes. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. I mean, they take time and stuff to gather and do, but it still has that kind of like lottery aspect a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with the lottery aspect for sure.
Ton of people tune into clue scroll
You get
openings.
that dopamine rush still, yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, I think stuff like that is fine and okay to have in the game. I just, like you said, it's really tough hearing the other side of it, when I've had lose streaks at the arena too, and it was incredibly tough to stop. And just to walk away those days and stuff like that, knowing that, if I keep going, I could lose everything and I might be demotivated from playing and stuff. And that's just where it's tough. And I can see both sides with the whole remove arena argument and keep it and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just a challenge. It's a challenge. I'm shocked that Jagex doesn't come out and say more about it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. They're always so silent about the Duel Arena. It's definitely it's a place we all know. It's a place where some people may have gone, some people may haven't, but Jagex just never comment, ever.
It would just be interesting to hear their stance or their plans on it, even going forward. I know I think it was like a few months ago, they dropped a bit in like a weekly update or something where they said, we're looking at it, future plans are in place. That's one thing we want to focus on. It might have been months back, but
Interesting.
yeah, with how many people that come in there and do have a negative experience, it's tough. But there's a lot of people that are responsible that come in there and have a very positive experience too.
The negative ones impact the person worse than the positive one impacting them in a good way.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, in my experience doing some big stakes and stuff, the feeling of winning a big one doesn't always outweigh the feeling of losing that big one. Even with how much I've
Yeah.
got, it's really crazy to describe, but that's part of the reason why I started streaming and stuff too, was just to provide some insight and hopefully let people kind of see my perspective, see my approach to it, hear me say only go with excess cash and stuff like that, to hopefully prevent people going in there unknowingly what this place really is, what it can do to you. At least they're going to go in informed. Maybe they'll take some of my advice, maybe not, and maybe they won't go there at all. Maybe they'll just kind of watch my stream and say, hey, this is awesome to watch, but you know what? Too risky for me.
Yeah, see, for me, I don't mind watching it, but I'll never do it. I've done it once in the whole time I played RuneScape. I made some money, then lost it, and I just left when I was like break even, and I've never gone back. But I do see the positives and negatives from streaming it though, because it's cool because someone might be able to see it and they can live through you, and it's like entertainment. But at the same time, someone might see it, they think they can make the money, and then they'll go lose all their money and quit the game. I guess it's quite a hard question to ask, but with you streaming predominantly staking at the moment, do you ever feel like it could impact a fair few of your viewers in a negative way?
I'm sure it does. To be honest, I'm sure it does. We try to I try to say those kind of disclaimers and stuff as much as possible during the streams.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly don't advocate my viewers to go in and try it themselves. But if they're dead set on it, I say make sure it's just spare cash. Set a limit for yourself. If you lose, you gotta walk. And then anytime I get so many PMs, Bushi, I went in and won one bill. I can't believe it. I've never had this much cash before. And I'll respond with like, that's awesome. That's great. Don't go back.
Mm-hmm.
Stay up, because I just know that feeling of losing. And I've seen people I know personally lose, and how it's crushed the game for them too. So it's tough. I mean, it can't avoid it. I think with so many staking streams too, that people are going to see it and they're going to want to try it too on their own. But I can only do my best to kind of communicate that it's risky. You got to make sure you're in a good spot with the game, and you got to make sure you individually have self-control.
I mean, old school, you go on old school streams and, there's a ton of stakes. And there's a ton of people that predominantly stream staking, like SparkMac. But then you would go on RS3 streams and no one would really stake. There may be one or two people, very rarely. But I think more recently, there's been more and more and more people that are streaming staking. I don't know whether it's good or bad for the directory. I have no idea. It's entertaining content. So if people are getting entertained, that's cool. But it's also risky because if, half the streamers end up, just streaming staking, it could then negatively impact the viewer base so that they, go try it, lose money, and then may not play. So it's like a double-edged sword because it provides entertainment, but it also provides that risk factor.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree. I haven't really thought about it in depth that much. What it could do to, the Twitch community for RS and stuff, with more and more staking streams pop up.
Have you noticed that there's more and more popping up?
I have. And again, I think it goes back to my point of, maybe people want to see some more riskier content within the game too. I mean, I think we're in a little bit of an odd period of time for RS right
So
now.
people are entertaining themselves, kind of thing. How I do clues, others might do, staking and stuff like that. I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, and just from my perspective, having some, maybe even updates to like the clue table and stuff like that with another colored die or something would just be a breath of fresh air into the game as well, and maybe would pull people away from watching staking content so much.
Yeah, I completely agree though, because whenever we get updates, viewers, focus those updates. Like whenever I stream a new thing, Alchemical Hydrixes are coming out, I expect to, have a decent viewership, more than
Oh
I
yeah.
normally would.
Oh yeah.
When Archaeology came out, it was crazy. It was the most craziest time I've ever had on Twitch. We had 2,000 to 5,000 people watching, which was, absurd. But it shows that whenever something new comes out, people do go and focus on that new stuff. And then in between that, people occupy themselves in different ways. So I guess old school is the same, new raids come out, everyone watches the raids, then staking streams start on old school again. And then people do their farming for logs, or people play their Iron Men and stuff. And then that starts again. You always have to try and entertain yourself in between with content that might not be quite as entertaining, but still content nevertheless. And you find different ways to risk stuff or make it thrilling. Duel Arena does that. I know people do Telos streaks. RS Guy done one recently where he lost like 700 mil from dying. So, that's just like losing money in staking because you're risking it for the biscuit and, it didn't pay off.
Right.
So, like, people like to see that big risk and, hopefully it pays off kind of thing. So I do get that part. You said you first discovered the Duel Arena end of last year-ish through SparkMac. You went there, you done stuff. But you said you had, like, all of the tier 92s you needed and about 2 bill. So that's what, 30, 40 bill or so?
All right. So I'll clarify. Not every single tier 92. Before I went to the arena, I would say my wealth, before I went into staking, I probably had 15 bill total worth.
Okay. So how much of your wealth do you think you've made via merching and how much via staking? Because obviously you make more and more money merching the more money you have.
Right.
Which is obvious because you can make more expensive investments and you can flip rares and dies and stuff like that. So I guess my question is, if you're worth around 1.3 trillion, how much of that do you think is from staking and how much of that do you think is from merching?
In a way, it's kind of all come from staking, in the sense that a lot of my big merching gains came from having access to more cash. And obviously with more cash, you can buy up more of an item. You can hold it for a longer period of time without, it affecting your gameplay at all.
Mm-hmm.
But, if I had to break down specifically of my 1.3 trillion held now, I would probably say 900 bill to a trillion of that was obtained through staking, and then maybe 200 to 300 bill through merchanting.
That's interesting because interesting to hear such a high amount has come from the Duel Arena versus the market or whatnot. And that is over the course of how long? Like a year, would you say?
Yeah, that was probably over the course of a year. I mean, again, it's tough to know the exact split. I might be selling myself short on the merching side, but I also don't want to underscore how much I made through staking as well. Like it's merching at that level was possible through staking. Before I went staking, I was merching things like onyxes, grimoire pages on a lower scale, any of the next armors, stuff like that, stuff that really only has, for next armors, like a few 100K margin, grimoire pages, onyxes, again, few 100K margin, and then you can just kind of keep building how many you're flipping per day. But it adds up, right? It all adds up if you're doing it passively. Obviously, once we got access to more GP through staking, aside from my GE offers in larger and larger quantities of some of those items I listed, I'm buying a hat and I'm putting up an offer to sell the hat for a higher price.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it gets sold or not because I'll just sit on it. I'll just wait.
Yeah.
I don't need to sell it. I would rather have the hat anyway. But if somebody's willing to pay me more than I paid for it, that's kind of like my approach with merching, is that it just allows you to be very patient with some of your investments. You can just wait and sit on them. I've had a lot of bad investments too, like Stone Spirits. Oh my gosh, how many times Jagex said what they would fix Stone Spirits, and I bought into that hype. I have just completely just fell on my face with that. I kept buying more and more Stone Spirits because I kept believing they were really going to fix it. And every time they came out with an update, it was a step in the right direction, but it wasn't enough to move the market. So
yeah, I think the only one that went up was the one that's required in Herblore now. Is it Necryte?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm still sitting on a shit ton of Stone Spirits, but refusing to take a loss on it, right? Because I to me, it's like I don't say it's a loss until I sell it. So I'm just stubborn. I sit on that stuff like that.
Fair enough. Understandable. Do you see your Duel Arena stuff as like healthy? And if you do, how do you make it a healthy thing? You said you have taken bad losses and it's impacted you badly. Do you do anything in particular to try and make it as healthy as possible?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, for me personally, we kind of touched on it a little bit, just saying that it takes, self-control, and another one is patience as well. When you go there, you can get caught up, especially if you've lost a couple in a row that, you feel like there's no way I can lose another one, right? It's not possible. The odds are
Yeah.
just too low and stuff like that, but it's just not the case. Every time you go in, it's a 50-50. It could
Yeah.
land on tails that many times in a row.
Yeah, it's like some people just get in that mindset and they physically can't. And then that's when it becomes a very unhealthy addiction, if anything, right? Because then they can't leave. They physically need to stay there. They need to get their money back, or they need to earn money via that, even if it costs them their whole bank. I don't think there's anything that can be done in terms of that. If someone is in that way and they have a very addictive personality, they can get carried away very easily. Stepping back definitely would help, but then sometimes you just can't, I guess. I've had a fair few friends that have quit the game via, just getting carried away, getting addicted, and just losing everything, and then losing their, I guess, like, will to play the game. I guess another thing that I'll ask is, would you be for or against removing it completely? Because obviously it's a decent amount of your time spent there and things. If they went and removed it completely, would you be upset? I'm guessing you would be. And like, what would be the reason why you would be upset if they just like removed it and they came out with a statement being like, oh, it's gone. We don't like the gambling side of it or whatever.
I personally would not be upset
Okay, that's interesting.
if they did that.
Mhm.
You know, probably probably easier to say for someone in my position, being where I'm at now and saying, okay, if it was removed, whatever. But I do see all the negative sides with it and the negative aspects with it. Curious to see if there was other kind of restrictions that they could implement, like
Like
before you even
attacks.
walked, yeah, attacks, or before you even walked in, like you get a pop-up that says, hey, do you want us to boot you out if you lose X amount? Just an optional thing to fill in.
Like a limit.
Yeah, 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 like a limit, for the day. Again, it'd be optional. I don't know how many people would use it, but I think a fair amount people would, because they're in a clear state of mind when they're walking in
Mm.
compared to when they're in the moment and stuff like that. And the reason I do see it as a positive to keep the place around too is, even if you were to remove it, there's that avenue of players that are going to find other means to risk their money. There's going to be websites, there's going to be different forms of in the game of how they could risk it
Mhm.
versus another player, and that just opens up the opportunity to scams and stuff like that, which I wasn't around when those where those were really prevalent, but I hear a lot about them.
Like dicing and stuff like
Yep,
that.
so I can understand why, Jagex maybe keeps it in the game, because it is some form of control. It's some form of way to make sure, hey, there's this avenue that, most of the people are going to use, and it's at least semi-safe in the sense that you can both kind of check each other's inventories and stuff and make sure it's a fair fight
In
beforehand.
terms of scams,
Yes,
yeah.
in terms of scams, because the amount of scams that are trying to be run there is absolutely out of control. There's so many people trying to sneak
Yeah.
items into a stake. There's people trying to summon familiars and use that as an advantage. And I try to call them out and inform people the best I can about it. It's tough. I'm shocked that more isn't done against those type of players that are blatantly trying to scam people, because I see those accounts there week after week, month after month,
Mm.
and it's the same group of people running them. And it's honestly not that hard, at least from my experience there, to identify those individuals or groups and say, hey, they're clearly here trying to deceive people
Yeah.
and cheat them out of GP instead of making it, maybe more of a fun experience.
That's actually a very interesting point with the whole. It's at least a less risky way of people gambling, because I know there's been stuff in the past with websites. Obviously, a friend had the whole thing of advertising a gambling website, and he got banned for that. All of that. There's been other people that have advertised gambling websites. Old YouTuber called Moto done the same thing. When he quit, he gambled. Got paid by a gambling website to promote a video on it. A lot of people seem to do those type of like dodgy stuff. I get messages from so many websites and companies that want to sell RSGP or do like gambling or games of chance, and obviously I just completely ignore those people, but it obviously goes on if those people are willing to spend money to get it advertised. Like, there's people that are going to be going on that site regardless, to keep it alive and keep it active. So
Right.
if the dual arena wasn't there, I could see those becoming more active, and then there's just way more risky for the player, because then they have to like trust their money with like a third party, etc. And then it's also against terms of service, so you can be banned. there's a lot
Yep.
to it. I do see that argument, which is fair, but then at the same time, it's way less easy to be accessed. The word is hard. So it's way easier to be
Yeah.
accessed via, in-game means versus like having to go to an external source.
Right.
So there's also that argument as well, where you can just walk in the Duel Arena, but you can't just walk into the, whatever game of chance you want to do. You're gonna have to sign up. You're gonna have to do all of this middleman stuff, and it'll be a lot more things to it. But it would lead to more scams probably. I do see that point.
Yeah, it would just be riskier for players' accounts.
Mm.
The individuals that are participating in that and stuff. At least with the current setup, most of the time, what people lose is just their GP. I say just their GP, but they still have their account. If they're participating
Yeah.
in those other activities, you're potentially losing players.
Yeah. I could see all sides of the argument. I personally wouldn't, care if the Duel Arena is removed. I do think it's obviously with the way that we've been chatting, you can obviously tell that I'm not the biggest fan, but
Yeah, that's fine.
I do see the whole thing, and it's interesting to just speak about because it is one of those things that's definitely prevalent, but it's way more prevalent in old school. And I feel like more and more people on RS3 are starting to, stream staking, stuff like that. So if it does get to the point where it is as common on old school, I would like to see something put in place, whether it's more restrictions or a statement from Jagex, stuff like that, and or maybe clamping down on scamming, etc., or a limit, whatever. I do think more needs to be put in place at least, if not it being removed, if it does get out of hand in terms of like how it is on old school. I'm surprised old schools is still there as well, or even how old school has like the 10% tax or something. That could be something that could be useful and beneficial to put in place as well. But then that's not going to stop people losing their banks. So yeah, there's a whole thing on it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they could add, like you said, the tax and stuff, just a little bit of a demotivator from going there. Even
Yeah.
that's just
To
gonna,
deter you
yeah, it's
away.
gonna
Yeah.
deter people away, and I think that's, it would more so encourage, the people going in there just for one stake. Maybe they got a drop and just doing the one and done, and they don't want to continue to do it because there's that tax or there's different controls in
Mhm.
place or there's limits.
I appreciate you talking about how in depth we've gone with the whole thing and everything like that.
Oh yeah, you got to look at it from both sides. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say it's this fantastic place that everybody should visit. It's not. It's just another component of the game currently. I don't know if it's going to stay there forever, but
Mm-hmm.
and just understanding both sides of the argument and understanding there's a winner and loser to each and every single stake. There's a person that's feeling really great, and then there's a person that's maybe on the verge of quitting the game because of it. It's tough. It's difficult. It's a difficult conversation.
Yeah, fair. And it's like obviously people again, like what we touched on earlier with the whole real world trade stuff. A lot of people associate the Duel Arena with real world trade as well, because some people will stake and then they'll sell whatever they make for real life money. So it's just like gambling with real money. And some people go to the extent where they lose their money and then they'll go either buy more money from a third party or buy bonds to then refuel their staking addiction. So then they're not just staking with in-game GP, they're staking with real money. And then obviously that's where it gets even more of an issue. And that's where more people are like against it in that regards, because it can ruin more than just their in-game character or their will to play the game.
100% agree. Yeah, no, it's something that exists for sure. And kind of like I alluded to before, I think more can be done to add controls to prevent stuff like that from happening. Whether it's
Definitely.
more active monitoring of the place, more can be done than what's currently set up because like you said,
Yeah.
it's very easy for a player to purchase a bunch of bonds.
It's crazy how much you can like get from Jagex as well before they like say no.
Yep.
Like not just when it comes to like bonds, when it comes to like MTX and stuff as well. So like when everyone's talking about how it's unhealthy with the Duel Arena, people could spend like thousands of dollars on treasure hunter keys and bonds and stuff like that, and Jagex doesn't allow you to put a limit on your account. There's loads of places and games that you can set yourself a limit of $50 a month, and as soon as you spend that, you can't physically spend any more unless you contact Jagex and get it lifted. And if you put that in place in the first place, it's going to be hard to lift it because you've made that agreement kind of thing, right?
Right.
So if they could do something like that as well, it would then help in that regards. Because if they could make you be able to put a limit on your account in terms of real money as well, then that could potentially stop someone going in the deep end when it comes to being cleaned or something. And when it comes to even if they're getting addicted to, spinning the treasure hunter or whatever.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, exactly. But
You
like
know.
a limit to the duel arena, a limit to how much you can spend on the game. Like limits are good, but Jagex doesn't have any, like anywhere, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, before I even think if they were to make steps towards limiting actions at the duel arena and stuff like that, just even addressing the whole treasure hunter aspect and how there's no limits there and how you can continuously spin and it's a random chance gambling mechanic, right there popping up in front of everybody's screen at reset every single day.
They've got a bit better with like you can choose from free items now, and some of the promos are like pretty good because you can choose exactly what you can get.
Yeah.
So they are working towards that in a good positive way. So maybe they will move on to other things like the duel arena and stuff in the future. But I feel like it's always going to be there in video games. Sadly, I know we're getting off topic, I guess, but I mean podcasts are here for tangents anyway. But like when it comes to the biggest and probably the king and what started it all was FIFA, because FIFA you'd buy the game, then you'd have FIFA Ultimate Team where you could buy packs, and it was predominantly aimed at children or
Yep.
teenagers
Yep.
for them to spend money on games of chances, which is opening up packs of virtual cards, and then they having a virtual value, etc. And like different packs are more powerful, etc. So you'd spend more money on the big ones, and then that then just set a precedent for different games. And RuneScape is one of those that has that type of market.
Yeah, it's predatory behavior, honestly, and I think even video game companies are starting to get better at it. There's just so much backlash when games are just blatantly, pay to win.
Yeah.
Even on like the RuneScape subreddit, anything MTX related gets downvoted to hell. And so and
Yeah.
the community feels very strongly about it because they're trying to protect the game that, people have invested so many hours into,
Yeah, and it's such an old game, they want to preserve it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
But we've been speaking for quite a while. Is there anything that you want to say before we end?
Maybe just to reiterate, caution if you do go to the arena.
Statement is bad. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna call it bad. It just, you got to have some self-control. You have to be patient and only go there with what you're willing to lose. Seriously, I've seen it affect many different individuals in the game differently, and some of those are very negatively. And it's just, please be careful. And then the only other thing I wanted to say was just thank you for having me on today. When I came back to the game 2 years ago and I was watching, who's this Maikeru guy making all these YouTube videos? These are awesome. Like I was learning so much from him. Like to think, one day I'd be able to have the opportunity to speak with you at this length about something like this is just truly awesome to me. So seriously, thank you for having me on and doing this. I really appreciate it.
Well, that's very, very kind of you to say, and I appreciate that. And it's been a lovely chat. So hopefully people will enjoy listening as much as I enjoyed chatting. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you. And if you ever want to have me on again, just let me know. And maybe if there's a topic or questions that we didn't touch on and people really want to hear about, I'm more than willing to do this again. Like you said, it was very fun chatting with you.